son to madrasa, I thought I would be volunteering for a couple of months, but then I continued to volunteer, and this is my 20th year, mashallah. So that was the start of it. And I think now it becomes more relevant. Kids nowadays, like some parents came to me saying, oh, my kid's asking me, why are we Muslim? Why do we have to adopt Islamic way? Why? Why? There are so many why questions. And now we are confronted with so many other issues, so many other questions, LGBT, dating and all that. So those are some of the questions that kids nowadays, are asking their parents, and the parents also convey to us. And those are some of the questions that maybe they would like to get addressed. And so the session with Sister Sakina, we divided into 3. The first one, we organized one via Zoom on March 1st, and alhamdulillah, approximately 100 parents and other and teachers attended. And the second one is this one, which is for the teachers. And then tomorrow we will organize a session with students. So the topic is the same: how to sharpen our emotional and spiritual intelligence, but the target is different. And inshallah, then Sister Sakina will be able to share with us the tips, and also maybe prompt discussions, prompt ideas, and how we can make it easy for parents to respond to their kids, and how we could make it easy for us as teachers to respond to our students. Maybe that is just the start. And again, I welcome you, Sister Sakina, and let us know if you need anything. But again, thank you. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
MashaAllah. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, the teachers, the organizers, the principal, everybody who's been working behind the scenes to put this program together over the last couple of months. I've met also some of the parents online when we had our session a few weeks ago. And I think it's really beautiful and important that the school is approaching this holistically and having similar sessions with the parents and the students and the teachers, so we really have more of a wrap-around understanding and appreciation of similar topics that everyone is discussing. I think sometimes the struggle that we face in Muslim organizations is like, oh, that's the teacher's role, or that's the madrasa's role, or that's like the parents' role. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to achieve the same goal, which is to nurture, inshallah, the fitrah of our children and the next generation of Muslims. So I went straight into that. All right. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. As we go along, I think since there's not many of us here today, I would really like it to be a bit more interactive, and I want to make the session useful and beneficial to you. I'm also an educator, a chaplain myself, a trainer and participant of these endless courses. And sometimes I think it is beneficial to learn from the person who's in front of us, but at the same time, to be able to really go deeper into your personal experiences and things that you personally might be struggling with yourself, with your emotional and spiritual journey, with your students, with your own children, your family member, your spouses, because all of that is connected to this. We cannot separate that. It's not just about the children. It really comes back to our own foundation and grounding. So inshallah, may this be a space that people feel safe to share. And I'm very serious about that. So if we want to stop the recording, if we want to make it however that people feel more comfortable to share, then we can do that. I think that's very important to be honest in some of these difficult conversations, because otherwise we don't really get to the depth of the matter. You are all educators in different capacities. You have many more years experience in different ways that you've been teaching. You know the knowledge. This is not about teaching you like some basic skills. So this is really about a deeper experience than that. And just me sharing my little perspective of what I know and what I have heard and what I feel has worked, whether with me personally or other people around me. So as we go along, I wanted to just share this model which talks about effective youth engagement outcomes. So when we're doing programs with youth or we're educating youth, children, usually what are the goals that we're trying to achieve? So whether it is, it doesn't matter if it's an academic program or a religious program, at the end of the day, when we look at this from the perspective of your role as madrasah and the teachers in the madrasah, we want the students to have a connection to the deen, to Allah, to their community, to themselves, to the teachers. So a deep part of the objectives of an Islamic school or Islamic center is nurturing that connection, so that when they grow up, wherever they are in this dunya, they still have that personal connection with Allah. They still have that identity of being connected to the Muslim community. They feel that sense of belonging. We want to nurture confidence, in this context, confidence that they can be proud to be Muslims, that they're happy to be Muslims, that they're comfortable identifying as Muslims in living. I'm talking in the context of living in the United States, so they're living in a very mixed environment, very diverse environment. Are they comfortable praying in public? Are they comfortable talking to their employers, their universities about some needs that they have with their deen? Do they have that sense of confidence in their deen and not to have to hide that they are Muslim? We are always talking about building character, of course, the akhlaq and the iman and the akhlaq of being a good Muslim and just being a human being in today's day and age, I think is already a struggle. So the character building of the objective of the madrasah, we're looking at competence, the purple one. So competence in some basic understanding of their deen. Do they know what they need to know to navigate life as a Muslim? Do they know basic things about their deen that they're able to practice, that they're able to speak about it and share with others, that they're able to teach their friends and family members as they proceed in life? And this is from the perspective of the ilahiyat, the deen knowledge, but also from the perspective of the mu'amalah from an Islamic perspective. What kind of knowledge and competence do they have in knowing that, okay, in an Islamic context, then approaching marriage, approaching dating, approaching choosing a career in life, approaching choosing my degree, approaching choosing what social media videos and apps to use, all of that is tied to their perspective of deen and their knowledge of what the guidelines are. We try to also encourage development where youth feel that they're able to contribute to the community, right? So as a Muslim, am I just living this world and taking and just trying to, finish school, go to job and just live? Or am I really trying to be of service, of khidmah to the ummah and beyond the ummah, to the humanity? Do I feel like I'm able to contribute in my role as a Muslim, in my responsibility, in my tanggungjawab, my responsibility as a Muslim, my obligation as a Muslim to be an active member of the community and contribute? And to me, at the end of the day, also underscoring all this is that spirit of caring, right, of rahmah, of compassion. Is the environment or the programs that we have, the teaching methodology that we have, are they producing caring individuals, caring Muslims? We say Bismillahirrahmanirrahim all the time, but do they feel Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim? Do they feel like agents of Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim? Are they able to live and navigate their life as a Muslim in this environment in a caring way and in a way that contributes to the community also? Because they are proud of being Muslim and because this is what Islam teaches us. So it's not so much this apologetic approach of like, oh, okay, I'll just try to be the best Muslim I can and not step on anybody's toes and not try to attract too much attention. To me, in fact, it's almost the opposite. It is because I'm a believing, strong Muslim, proud Muslim, that makes me need to engage in the community, that makes it my duty to be active in the community, that makes the requirement even more important that I'm contributing. It's not just, I'll just, as a youth grows up, I just want to live the American lifestyle and then not, and hide my Muslim and try to survive however I can. In fact, it should really be the opposite. And so, okay. I'll just touch briefly. I know we won't have time to go into each of this in detail, but these are some resources that I also want as educators. I think if you want to study more different perspectives of some of the things we shared today, you can look it up later, you can read about it, or you can connect with me and to do more detail. So there are different like methodologies and frameworks about the understanding of a human being as they process religious development. So this is not research based on Muslims necessarily, but it is very applicable across the board. At what age do children understand the identity of being a Muslim from more of like a fantasy approach, and they're hearing stories and they know like, okay, there's Malaika or there's Jannah and then there's Allah. And so things don't quite fit in the same approach as an adult, right? As they're going through the development and processing their identity as a spiritual being. And then as they grow older, the understanding of going from more abstract ideas of spirituality, of God, of angels, of maybe we say like, oh, like Allah made the spider and Allah made the grass and Allah made the sun. And it's because of Allah that we are praying, that we're washing ourselves and we're praying. You see Mama and Baba praying 5 times a day. So they're hearing things, they're observing things, but they don't quite have like, oh, this is a religion in their mind, right? They're developing that as they grow. And the earlier adolescent years where people are often trying to not stand out too much, I think most of that early teens, they want to kind of blend in. They don't want to look too different. So whatever they believe, also, they don't really necessarily want to be seen as too different from their classmates at school. And at the same time, a little bit older than that, also there are the phase of development where they want to feel a little unique. A lot of teenagers, at the same time, they're struggling with not being too different, but they also want to be a little cool, a little different, a little special. They want to have something different. So that there is an influence of that in their perception of their religion and their own spiritual practice. Okay. What else? I think this is, I will just mention this briefly as we proceed. I think this is probably a very common teaching that all of you are familiar with, right? When that we play with our children for 7 years, and then there is more of like a teaching instructive phase for the next 7 years, and then befriending them as a companion and treating them more of a young adult for the next 7 years. And so there's a lot of research also that support this approach, and this is another perspective as we go forward that you might want to look into deeper. So why is this kind of emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence important? The topic is huge, and I was struggling gimana nak narrowkan a little bit, but in general, I think ultimately we want to be able to understand ourselves better. We want to understand our children better. We want to be aware of each person's approach and characters. I know that's hard. I don't know how many students in class do each of you have? Like 10 or 1-to-1 or like 30, 50, 1-5 average? Okay. And and they're with you all year or just for a few months or all year? For Quran is like 1-to-4 smaller groups. Okay. Okay, so it's not too large. You're still able to kind of get to know each student a bit more personally over the year, inshallah. Okay. And we want to be able to improve the efficiency in our communication, but also the level of deeper emotional empathy in our communication with the students. And being a bit more emotional intelligent and aware with our own emotions and their emotions also helps to build trust and helps when we navigate conflict. I think somebody has their hand up in the Zoom. Lucy, is it? You can unmute. Did you want to ask something or share a comment? No. Okay, so the people on Zoom, if you want to speak and share, you can either raise your hand or just unmute and stop me because we can't really see your faces. Okay. So generally, people who are considered, who have higher emotional intelligence tend to be good communicators, and they are able to do that because they are more aware of what is going on inside themselves. And this is where the connection to muraqabah comes in. So when we talk about muraqabah, it's not just about our awareness of Allah, Allah's awareness of us. To be able to do that, it also comes from the practice, like a muscle. We need to exercise the muscle bit by bit of our own self-awareness. Why am I upset? Why when this child says something, I get triggered very quickly and my anger goes up very fast. Tapi if it's another child says something, I don't have that same reaction. So it's a lot of practice of asking myself why I'm reacting a certain way to different situations. And then that also helps with being aware of other people's emotions in the room. You know how some people, you can even notice, right, that when they communicate with somebody, they're able to go deep very fast. They're able to gain trust very fast. And they're aware, like if the person is falling asleep or the person looks tired or something, then they will check like, okay, actually, am I talking too much? Or did you need to rush? Some people don't have that awareness. They might knock on your door, come to your house. They don't have the emotional awareness that you're in the middle of having guests and they're starting to talk at the door or something, and they're just they don't have that awareness of like, hey, are you checking in what's going on with the other person, and can you be more attentive to their needs and their emotions? So I'll share, I think this is probably the most important part, most important summary maybe of what we want to talk about today. There was a research, I shared this with the parents group. There was a research that was done on the religious continuity over generations. That means between the parents and the next generation, do they continue in the same deen, in the same faith? This research was done mostly with Christian families, but I feel like the outcomes is very relevant in any faith community. So they studied 200 to 300 families, and they went over a few years. So it wasn't that it was like a one-time interview. They spoke to the families in the beginning, and then they continued interviewing. So they interviewed the parents and the children, and they interviewed them multiple times. So it wasn't just a one-time thing. So they have data over a period of few years on whether these children, this next generation, identified as the same religion as their parents, whether they feel happy about it, or they just feel like, okay, you know, my parents were this religion, so I'm this religion, or they left the religion, or they were really practicing it, or they just remained the same religion by name. So there's a lot more detail in the research. But the three things that I wanted to summarize was that the main predictors of whether the children continued in the same faith and identified as the same faith and felt that the faith was important to them was, one, an emotional closeness with their parents. So I would say this is the same to teachers, you know, whether this is parents or educators or teachers or your village, your aunts, your uncles. So there's a sense of emotional closeness with the adults in your community, with your parents, your educators. And this connects back to the emotional intelligence portion. This connects back to being able to really listen and understand and have empathy for the children. The second predictor is whether the family had what they call real conversations about religion and spirituality. So it wasn't enough that they felt they had emotionally a good relationship with their parents and they have trust and the parents understand them and they're like a happy family, they seem to be balanced. But did they have real deep conversations about religion? And again, this is not like a one-time thing, right? Like, oh yeah, when I was 16, we talked about the meaning of Islam. Or like when your child asks you, Teacher Ina, and you know, why do I have to be Muslim? It's not just a one-time conversation. This is a conversations that we keep having in different times of their life. And whether they feel that the parents or the educators are being honest about these conversations around religion, whether they feel that their questions are heard or just ignored. And we can talk about this in more detail. Of course, I mean, I think just this generation, this next generation in general, especially being raised here, they're very critical. They want to know why. They want to understand, but why this, but why not that? They want to understand, why can my friend do this? Or like, my friend's Muslim too, but they don't pray. Why we are Muslim, we have to pray. So this all these, why do we have to believe in, can I just believe in God and be a good person? Isn't that enough? What is the difference of being Muslim? So all these kinds of questions, do we just ignore? Do we just say, well, this is what we learn, this is what Allah says, this is what our Prophet ﷺ teaches, so we just follow? Do we sometimes have to be honest with ourselves and say, actually, I don't know. I don't know why we have to pray 5 times a day, not 3 times a day. Let's find out together. Do we then turn that into a process where parent and child, or a teacher and child, maybe do some reading and research of like, oh yeah, why do we have 5 times a day salah? Why is it not 3 times? Why is it not 7 times? Or there's hadith, or there's teaching, or there was a story where Rasul Sallallahu during Isra Mi'raj met. So some of those things I feel just come from fear when parents and educators themselves don't quite know certain things about our deen and are not comfortable with exploring it together with the child. Sometimes it can be an ego thing where we feel challenged and we don't know, and then we're just like, well, just follow, this is what's good for you. Sometimes we're just exhausted because they're asking why 70 times a day and you have 15 kids in the class and it's like, I don't know, just do it. So all these valid, real reasons, reality, right? Like why we don't always, it's not easy to have these kinds of conversations all the time, but does it happen enough that they feel they are part of that growth and development and understanding of the deen, that they feel ownership about it? and that they feel the parents or the educators can be honest and humble and learn in the process. Sometimes I've had parents who are like, well, I want my child to read Quran better than me. I didn't read Quran well. I send my child for madrasah. And I'm like, are you going to improve your reading? Like, did you sign up for the madrasah too and take the adult class? Oh, but I'm busy and then I have this. Okay, then that leads to kind of number 3, right? The religious and spiritual modeling. Do they see us doing what we say, or do they see us doing what we are encouraging to do, prioritizing our life in that way and modeling that behavior and modeling the love and the relevance of our deen? I think coming back, like, my God, like, ya Allah, the most frequent question I get now from the youth is, why do I need to be Muslim? Why do I need to be Muslim? How is this deen helpful for me? How is this even relevant? I mean, yeah, okay, my parents prayed or didn't pray or did this or did that, but they didn't appreciate that Islam was a way of life. Islam was a deen. It was a path. It was because of Islam that our life is easy and fun, and we are good people, and we're ethical community members, and that my parents are, I'm proud of my parents, and I see them as good people, and that's because of Islam. They see the relevance, and Islam made my parents happy. They were happy to pray. They didn't argue. They were communicating well with each other, husband and wife or whatever, rather than Islam in the home or in the school being a source of stress between parents fighting or arguing about deen related matters or something. So they're observing that and they're asking the questions. And it's not just enough to have good emotional relationship, but those real and deeper conversations, involving them in those conversations and decisions. We have some examples of it. And then also watching our behavior and being quite explicit about why we do certain things. Okay, conversations about religion. So I was just kind of lifting some points, how this happens at an age appropriate way, right? So when somebody's 10 or somebody's 16 and asking about questions like, why are boys and girls different, and the way we respond might be different, asking questions like, well, why don't you let me have TikTok like my friend, and how does that even relate to Allah wants us to be careful in how we share things and share pictures and videos from our own home. And so this is why the filter is here. It's to help to keep you safe and keep others safe. And so kind of that age appropriate conversation as we go along. I think I want to also mention a big part of this process is encouraging our curiosity instead of just, well, we know this is what's right. You want to wear, say, short shorts like your friend at school or whatever, and we are focused on saying this is wrong, this is right, but we're not really curious to find out, so why do you want to wear that? Oh, because if I don't and I wear something different, then when I go to camp, then the friends make fun of me. So it becomes an issue of actually their self-confidence, right? That they feel different if they don't dress a certain way, maybe at school, and certain friends don't want to be friends with them. So you can, with that curiosity, you're able to have a deeper conversation. Like, okay, so how are you treating other people, for example, who dress different? Like, do you treat them like these other girls treat you? Or do you feel that's like a good thing to be making people feel bad because of what they wear? No, actually, that's not. I don't want to do that. Like, I just play with anybody, whatever they're wearing. Like, okay. So curious, not just saying like, oh no, we can't do this because we have to cover our legs, because our legs, like, okay, so what? Like, they don't care about that. And this is a conversation that my friend actually had with her daughter just a few weeks ago. So it's a very real example. And it led to the daughter realizing, yeah, actually, why do I want to have to dress a certain way just so I can be friends with those girls? Because I don't wear what they wear. I can make friends with all these other girls who are not judging what I wear. And it was her own realization that that's probably a better group of friends to have than this one. So that could easily have just been a conversation about wear this, don't wear this, but because of the curiosity, and it takes a lot of sabr again. So it comes back to our own emotional intelligence also, right? When you're exhausted, you don't have maybe the patience to sit through and have this 15-minute conversation about why we can't buy shorts that are that short. But if you have the emotional energy and you are reminding yourself this is important, this could change, this could be like a foundational understanding that's beyond the discussion about clothes. It's about your confidence in yourself and how Allah made you already a certain way. And it's about how you treat other people and your friends and who you call your friends. The power of I don't know, we talked a little bit about that, being honest. I think in our generation, some of us, I won't generalize. I know there's different kinds of parents. Some of you maybe were born and raised in the US. Some of you came when you were older. Some of you came when you were younger in college. Whatever your spiritual and religious journey is, the power of saying I don't know when sometimes our children are asking difficult questions, especially about deen. I don't know, but let's find out together. So let's watch some videos about this together, or let's attend this program together about Salah. Maybe then we can discuss in that program why we pray 5 times a day, not 3 times a day, and why why Rasulullah Sallam is the last messenger. Were there not other messengers after him? Like, how do we know there's no messenger now? Let's learn together. Let's study Sirah together. So I mentioned this complexities part because that's, I think, another common issue that surfaces now. And maybe with you, when we do some discussion, we can share when parents themselves don't agree. So you may have children at your school, your students who maybe the father is very practicing, the mother's not. The mother's very practicing, the father's not. And that causes confusion sometimes and tension in the home with the children. And then they come to school. And I think the common unfortunate perception is like, well, we'll just send our kids to Sunday school for 4 hours and that will fix everything. And it's all on your shoulders. That's not fair. That's not fair and that's not right. And that's not tarbiyah. Yeah, I think, yes, we should just have a session about that. Like punch the wall session for the teachers, let out some of the frustration. But yeah, the wrap around tarbiyah, right? The home, the parents, the siblings, the community, the teachers. It's not just like the sent to Sunday school and tarbiyah my child. And so the complexities again, when the parents themselves are going through different spiritual progress. I've had many times, maybe parents in their 40s, they decide, they never really prayed before much. And then suddenly in their 40s, they're like, Allah, astaghfirullah, I want to change. I want to become a good Muslim. And then they go through their own whatever's going through. And then over the period of a few months, they start praying 5 times a day and they change this and that. Or now we cannot eat, a burger. We have to buy only halal food. And the kids are already 10, 12, 13, 14, 15. And why do we have to change suddenly? Like just because you were going through some spiritual transformation growth, suddenly now this 15-year-old have to start praying, have to start changing this, and I can't eat that anymore. And we ate for years, you never have an issue. So those conversations again of like, okay, look, maybe at times I think the parents also just like parents, educators, like we just need to apologize. Like certain things I didn't know any better. I was going through my own struggle with deen and understanding. I didn't really feel I was very Muslim. And I think this is very important and this is good for our life and our families. And to be patient that other people in the school or the family or the students are not on that same page in the same way. And so case by case, of course, this can be a lot stressful, especially like I talked about this more in the parents category, because usually that's what's happening now with the husbands and wives having different approaches. I wanted to share some real life voices. These are messages from my friends, from their children, from some chaplains who are my friends, some ustadha, who are in our community. I have removed most of their names. I've left one name. Trisha is a chaplain, Muslim chaplain. She's raising, I think, 2 or 3 boys. And so I really just wanted us to take this topic to a very real place. So my friend shared that she was having a conversation with her child, her daughter, who said, Islam is so boring. Everything fun is not allowed. And I want to wear tiny short shorts like my friends, those examples I was giving earlier. Another friend was sharing that she's bringing like girls to the masjid, and they like have trouble in certain, alhamdulillah, in IMAAM and in a lot of, I think, the Nusantara community, women are very welcome in the masjid. Back home in my country, Malaysia, in Indonesia, women are involved and welcome in the masjid, but that's not true for some other Muslim communities as well. And in the US, we're a very diverse group, and in some masajid, it is very different, and the way women are welcome or not welcome can be very different. And as like an immigrant, maybe second or third generation teenage girl, those are the questions they're also asking, like, why, if I go to masjid, I feel like I don't belong, I'm not welcome. Do I want to be a Muslim woman? We say Islam promotes equality. We say Islam and Rasul Sallam, his wife, and stories of Aisha and Khadija, but they often will just link back to what they're actually experiencing. So the line that I felt was so powerful, because this lady was saying, well, the women often are the backbone of the masjid, but we feel like the appendix, where the appendix, the organ appendix, we don't really know the purpose of the appendix. The presence is optional, and occasionally we cause trouble. So she thought, do I want to be a woman who's a Muslim if basically I'm just like an appendix? I'm not needed. My voice is not in this community. So my friend chaplain Trisha herself shared very vulnerably that her own 11-year-old son was kind of joking or not joking that when I grow up, maybe I don't need to be Muslim anymore, because right now being Muslim is more about disrupting my fun, and I have to stop and pray and say things I don't understand. And so she was actually asking in the group feedback from, so a lot of people in her group are chaplains, ustada, teachers, staff. So she's asking them, you guys who were raised in the West, what are the things that you feel supported you in wanting to maintain your identity as a Muslim? So these are some of the responses, and I removed their names. But because we're talking about some of these topics, and I just wanted to share some of these voices and then also hear your stories. So one person shared, you can teach your kids to pray, but when they become teenagers, it's really important that they have their own Muslim community and Muslim peers. Those are the people that they will choose to pray with beyond their relationship with their parents. It's also important that they have someone to ask their questions without judgment, whether it's a scholar or a chaplain or some of the teachers in their madrasahs that they feel comfortable asking deeper questions to, and they don't feel judged. And he was also saying that we're losing so many people from the faith, and it's shocking that we're not discussing this more openly. And I agree. I am now volunteering in an Islamic graduate school. So, we have a Masters of Islamic Studies program. We have scholars with PhD. We have very knowledgeable people. And my fear is, to be honest, some of their kids don't really want to be Muslim anyway. So where are we going? Where are we going? Where's our priorities? And let's not abandon some other priorities and lose a whole generation of people who don't see the benefit of being Muslim. Somebody shared, what worked for me was anything that felt real and authentic. People who recognized difficulty, humanity, accepted me who I am. People who tried to make me a robot, no, to just obey, to question authority, who told me to ignore my own curiosity and my own humanity. So that didn't work. So they were sharing what worked, what didn't work. Somebody else shared that we teach our kids to carry Islam like a bag of bricks, when it should be, I love this. We teach our kids to carry Islam like it's a bag of bricks. when it should really be a bunch of balloons that uplift us, that uplift our soul. Islam, our deen should be like nur, right? Our deen is that nur that lightens us, that brings that joy. Why are we saying arihna bis salah and then it's like salah is the worst thing and most difficult thing? Why are we not getting the arihna from the salah? Why are we not getting that nourishment? And of course it's not easy, but anyway, let's go on what he was saying. So I love that visualization of like, it should be like balloons that's lifting their soul, that's making our kids feel that joy of being Muslim. Not just the kids, even us, especially us, and not just like dragging them down. So then he shared that many organizations that are trying to do a lot of community work, but also in those organizations there's sometimes dysfunction. And he shared that he wanted his own sons to learn Islam from a very personal place, and having a connection. So he himself was one of, I think, like Ustad or scholar in American Muslim, and his mom also was Islamic studies professor. I mean, this man and his wife, and still his own children, he was sharing, struggling with identity. Another person shared that having strong role models who are not necessarily the shuyukh or the imams in the masjid, but they are strong role models in the community who our children can see, and have examples as as role models. And he also shared that what was this about? Yeah, interest in like exploring diverse ways of appreciating Islam through poetry, through art, through book, through nature, through music, so not necessarily just through maybe what we experience usually when we talk about Islamic education. So it's appreciating different aspects of Islamic education through the arts even. Let's take what time is it? Okay, so any thoughts, comments, reflections, questions before I proceed? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it was actually interesting when you said at the very beginning about the nurtured confidence and being happy for being Muslim. It's actually really close to me. My son is 16 now. I feel like when he's outside of let's say mall or airport or mall, whatever restaurant, and I feel like he's not like if let's say like it's prayer time, if I ask him to like pray in public, like I feel like he's like it's embarrassed.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. It's hard.
And then another thing also like at home or like with his friend, and it's like like it's prayer time, right? And then he'll just say, "Oh, I gotta go real quick. I'll be right back." So, but other things he would say, "Oh, I gotta go eat. Oh, I gotta go. I gotta go." But just for that part, like and then like I was like, like why he doesn't want to say, I did ask him, but then he said, like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he just doesn't want to say.
Yeah.
And
even adults, right? It's not just your 16-year-old son. I've had adults come to me because they're like, I don't know if I can pray in my office. I'm like, why can't you pray in your office? Well, I need to check with have you asked your boss? Have you talked about just having 10 minutes in a corner? No, what if they judge me, and what if? So yeah, it's hard even for adults to, again, coming back to that confidence, like you haven't even asked, you haven't even tried, and then now you're not even praying because you're assuming they'll say no. So part of the work is that encouragement of the communication, right? To also share what are your needs, to practice certain things, to build that confidence over time. But yeah, absolutely, it is there's still a lot of shame. And I think one of the struggles here also is not just here, but I think there's just a whole underlying shift in mindset of all religions being not cool. So it's not just an Islam thing, but it's like all religions are if you're religious, that means you're backward. If you're religious, that means you're not using your intellect, you're just following blindly. If you're religious, so to me there is a very strong, not a, I would not say like agenda, but there is a very strong approach in just general social media or community, especially here, the individualism of believing in yourself, you don't need religion. So it's not, so even if the Christian friends wanted to pray or do mass in the morning or something, they would still have that same struggle of like, well, I should just hide thing. This is a religion thing. It's just a private thing, and not be open about it, unfortunately.
It must be like, like he has to come out as a Muslim.
He has to come out. Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. Yeah.
I would imagine, like I have a daughter, and
Yeah.
because that's where he got in school,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
identity now is you can't tell.
Yes, that's so true. Coming out as a religious person, coming out as a more practicing Muslim or any religion is a big struggle. It is something that people feel they need to hide, and then they have to come out and say, no, actually, or they have to be apologetic about like, I can't go to that thing because, they'll be drinking. I don't really want to be involved. And why are you feeling sorry? Like, why? If that's what is important to you. But the other struggle is exactly what you mentioned. For Muslim girls, there's a whole nother layer, especially Muslim girls who are trying to wear hijab. There's no hiding. There's no hiding. You men have it easy in this society. And even beard, like who knows why you have it's a lot of Hollywood actors have beards. So it's so easy to be, okay, it's easier in some ways to be a Muslim man in a Western environment where you're not immediately visible as a Muslim no matter where you go. So sometimes counseling for some teenagers also, and sometimes the dads are like, can you please talk to my daughter about wearing hijab? I'm like, do you know how hard it is to wear hijab in this country? Like your daughter right now doesn't even know if she wants to be Muslim. She's 15 and you're all stressed out. You're just like, please tell my daughter to hijab. Please tell my daughter to wear hijab. You try wearing hijab for 1 week and go to your office and go fill gas in the middle of the night in Sunoku. Like you do it. Then, I mean, I'm not saying don't wear hijab. I'm just saying like, what are the priorities? At this point, his daughter is just struggling with Iman, and then to be publicly Muslim, and then one of the questions I had at the Mu'tamar with some of the Indonesian teenagers was, I don't want to wear hijab in my school because people ask me things about Islam as if like I'm supposed to know all things Islam, right? I suddenly become the ambassador of all Muslim things because I'm the only visible Muslim in my high school because of my hijab. So that's the only reason she didn't want to wear hijab. And I think that's a fair reason. Like, how hard is it even as an adult to suddenly have to become the ambassador of all things Islam with people asking you questions or having misconceptions just because, and you're in high school and you're navigating all that? Like, yeah, Allah, I feel so, it's not easy. The kids have it really hard in some ways. And yeah, please.
Bring identity, courage, the dad. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like you have to be defensive, like you feel you like, yeah. Mm. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Like why are you wearing jeans? Like where Mhm. Mhm. Maybe help, yeah. I mean, I feel different approaches work with different people also, right? Like sometimes people want to find a logical, what they feel is a logical reason for something. In certain things about our deen, I like that approach. In certain things, I don't, because I feel like then there's always ways to argue. If somebody says, well, wearing hijab is safer for you in this context or something, then I can say, then somebody can also say, well, wearing hijab maybe in downtown neighborhood that's very rough or something is not safer. It is attracting attention. So am I wearing to attract attention or not attract? At the end of the day, to me personally, like hijab, I just wear it because Allah says wear it. For that topic, I don't try to like rationalize, because in some places, if you're saying, well, you're trying to reduce attention or hide your beauty, but in most places here, you're wearing hijab, you're attracting attention, you're not reducing attention. So if that's the reason, that reason doesn't work in that context, right? So to me, but again, it depends on the person, depends on the approach of the teenager also, because they'll kind of like to like argue with the kind of logic things, which makes sense to me. It is not necessarily safer here. I am attracting more attention. I attract less attention when I'm not covering my hair, but that's not the reason why I'm doing it or I'm not doing it. Yeah. Let me share this video and then we can continue the discussion also. So I don't know if I'll share a bit of background. I want to share this because I think this happened in Malaysia, is happening now in Malaysia, and it's very much in the social media now. And it relates, I feel, a lot to what's going on with our youth here. So this, I have not, I will be honest, I have not watched the whole movie. I need to find it. I think they just launched it. I need to find it online somewhere, but I have watched some clips of it. And to me, I'm bringing it here as a discussion. I'm not bringing it here to say the movie is right or the movie is wrong or the approach is right or wrong. I'm bringing it here because the reality is our kids are already thinking what is in this movie. And especially living here, this is already a pluralistic environment. This is already an environment, and I think it's good to a certain extent. So that's why I put some questions there about when do we explore our religious and spiritual identity? Like, I don't want my kids also to grow up feeling, oh, I just have to be Muslim because, I don't know, my parents say I'm Muslim, so I guess I'm Muslim. I want them to have a genuine relationship with Allah. I want them to really feel connected to Allah. I want them to really feel that Allah made this whole dunya, this whole universe, and many, many universes. And the person in the middle of Russia somewhere is Allah's abd, and I'm Allah's abd, and the spider is Allah's abd. Like, I want that genuine appreciation of deen. I don't want my child to just be Muslim because, I don't know, my parents say I'm Muslim, I just follow. But at the same time, you know, and I want them to be curious about other religions too. I want them to be open to learn and to understand their friends maybe have different religions. Or I went through that process myself when I was in high school and in college. I studied other religions. I wasn't sure I wanted to be Muslim. I felt at that time Islam was very harsh. I felt I didn't have the connection spiritually that I felt was there. And so in my own exploration, I eventually come back myself to Islam, thinking Islam has all those things. It's just that I wasn't exposed to it, or I didn't meet teachers who talked about it. I was very interested in Buddhism because I felt like there was so much connection to the nature, to alam, and nature and the trees and the water and all that things. And then later on, then I met Islamic teachers of tafsir who talked that way about our deen, who were like, look, the Quran is, whatever pages, and 70-60% is about tadabbur, afala yatadabbarun, afala yatafakkarun, tadabbur, the stars, the moon, the skies, the ants, the camel. So the nature part that I felt was missing in Islam, and I thought was like, oh, I should, like, Buddhist people are always like meditating in nature. We're supposed to, the whole dunya is my masjid. I can pray out, I should pray outdoors in the garden, jinn praying with me in jama'ah, like all that, but I didn't feel that love. I didn't feel that connection with nature. And I felt some of my Christian friends were very active with social justice, and they were the ones volunteering and feeding the Somali refugees every week, teaching them English. And I was volunteering with the Christian church that my friend was at, teaching Muslim Somali refugees English and supporting them and all these things. And my local mosque wasn't doing that. I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that as a growing teenager in college age, I was exploring other things. And alhamdulillah, I met teachers from different madrasah, from my university or online or wherever, that I felt like, okay, yeah, actually a lot of these things are already in Islam. And then that made me also be more serious about communicating those kinds of approaches to Islam to the next generation, because I felt I could have just easily left because I didn't really see what benefit I was getting from it. I didn't see that joy in my deen. I didn't feel like I had a relationship with Allah. So how much do we discuss? How much do we encourage their curiosity in a way that we are guiding them? And I know that makes a lot of parents and teachers uncomfortable because we're not familiar. You maybe never entered a church before. How do you know how to respond if your kids are asking about, so what's the difference with this church or that church or what? It takes our own exploration and understanding. So maybe you need to find friends of different faith also to be able, or teachers of different faith, to be able to communicate and to share and then educate our own children. So the curiosity is there, but it's also guided. Otherwise, I mean, they're online all the time. They're already looking at all kinds of whatever online. So it's not to say, oh, we'll guide what they see. You cannot. I'm sorry, like, you cannot guide what they see. You have no control about what their parents allow them on their devices at home. I think one of the scholars, who is it? One of the scholars I was with recently said, Islamic schools, madrasah and Islamic schools should ask parents to agree to a contract that until the children is to 13 years old, they cannot have social media or whatever until such and such. So because if the parents want to help the kids view be made, like tarbiyah in a certain way, then they need to agree with certain things when it comes to social media and devices, which is where a lot of these other influences are coming in unsafely in a way that you don't even know what they're seeing. So anyway, back to this movie in Malaysia. It was about this teenage girl who was exploring different religions. So in Malaysia, it's majority Muslim, and then we also have Christians, Buddhists, Hindus. And so to me, this was a very real situation. You're a teenage girl, you're trying to understand yourself, your parents are Muslim, you're asking questions. But because it was made into a movie, I think it created it. Again, social media will explode. And there was a lot of debate about this movie. And unfortunately, what happened is that now, even the director of the movie received death threats by Muslim groups saying, receiving death threats. His family was threatened. I think they threw paint on his car to say, you shouldn't do this. You are trying to make our children be misguided because you're encouraging them to ask questions about religion and stuff like that, which I think that's not a good approach either. So, Alhamdulillah. I'll translate some of the Malay or Indonesian Malay for some of you, but I think you get the context. I gave the background. Now let's see if we can do the sound without causing issues on Zoom.
Other than heaven after we die.
Well, there is. It's called hell.
You think she'll convert?
Yakin makan tangkap if they try.
That's okay. I think it'll just.
Have you ever thought about what if there's something else other than heaven after we die?
Have you
Well,
ever
there
thought about what
is.
if there's
It's called
something else
hell.
after we
You
die?
think she'll convert?
Yakin makan tangkap if they try.
Whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life.
How's your chicken pao?
Oh, I didn't get chicken. I got char siu.
Oh, you nak try sikit? Apa?
Char siu is babi, you know.
I know. Apa?
You can't eat babi. It's haram.
Alah, hari tu kau makan beef okay je. Tu pun haram juga kan? Why can you eat beef but I can't eat
Okay,
pork?
that's different.
How is it different?
It just is, okay?
Ooh. What do I need to do? Okay. So in the first scene, I'll talk over it because I think the audio is not working very well. So in the first scene, she's asking her mom, what is there in the afterlife? If not Jannah, then the mom said, well, there's Jahannam. And then the next scene they showed here was her playing with some dogs, which again, of course, in the Madhahib, there's different opinions. In Malaysia, generally, it's a little bit sensitive also. So she was playing with her friend's dogs. And then there was a conversation here about where she was reading the Bible. And I think in the movie, it shows that she was reading books about different religions to find out about them. And so there was scenes of that. And this is a conversation with her friend who's, I think in the movie, he's Hindu, Indian Hindu, and he was eating pork. And she said, well, can I try some? And he's the one telling her, you're Muslim, right? Isn't it supposed to be haram to eat pork? And so she was telling back to him, well, you ate beef last week. So there's that scene. And there's these further questions and explorations. There's this scene where they show the parents. So
look, Sen. If there is any other religion that speaks to you more than Islam, if there is any other faith that speaks to you on a deep personal level, and if you feel that you want to convert or peluk agama lain, go ahead, Sam. I mean this.
in this section, there was showing the parents were praying salah, and then she was having a conversation with the father, and the father was saying, if kalau ada agama yang lain, if there's any other religion that you feel that you connect with better or that you feel you can relate to better, then Bapa restu. So like I give you my blessing if you feel that you need to change to a different religion. So I think the conflict online also with a lot of the respondents was sort of showing that the parents were practicing Muslim, and then also showing that the parents were encouraging or supportive of her if she wanted to change her faith. So again, I'm not saying this is right, this is wrong. I just want to I think where we have discussion, yeah, I think it's an important discussion of different types of approaches when you are encouraging or coercing or forcing or guiding or totally not guiding and say, never mind, let them explore whatever they want and figure it out by themselves. And inshallah, their fitrah will kick in. But Allah also gave us responsibility to guide the fitrah, right? Not just completely to let go. It's just showing like clips of some of the scholars in Malaysia kind of giving feedback about the movie. So in the movie, Aisha's mother had died. So it was, I think she died. I don't know if she dies in the movie or she has already died when the movie was there. But at the end, it sort of shows that she was visiting her mother's grave, qubur, and there was a butterfly there, and that she felt that she was talking to her mother and the butterfly. And I mean, I feel like, you know, social media is also doing its own thing, taking things a bit out of context. I don't think that she feels the butterfly is her mother, but you know, they're sort of saying, oh, she's talking as if the mother is reincarnated in the butterfly and things like that. So to me, this isn't just these are important conversations that we wanted to have when it comes to being aware of the questions that the next generation has, or this generation even has. And one of the approaches I really love and I appreciate when we talk about the part of having the children be involved in their own deen and their own process. And for example, if the whole family decides, okay, we want to go for halaqah, there's a few masjids around this area. This masjid is doing halaqah on this topic, that masjid is doing halaqah on this topic. Which one would you like to go to this week? So in a way, I feel like the parents sort of set a boundary of like, we will go to these halakas, but you have the agency and the choice to choose which masjid or which topic, as long as you choose one of them. But as a family, we will go. So it's not always so much, well, you only want to go to that masjid and they do the halakah in that language and I don't understand. Or like, that masjid's dirty, I don't like it, the other masjid's nice. So to me, we have to be a bit creative in encouraging the students and our children to feel they have a choice in their deen, and in a genuine way, because they also know when we're just trying to like manipulate them, right? We know they're trying to manipulate us. So in a genuine way to get them involved in the process. But that, I know that means more work for us as a parents, as a teacher, trying to give choices to our kids is more effort for us. It's easier for us to just to decide this is where we're going, that's it. It's hard for us to include them in the process and to get their opinion and to say like, okay, if you really don't like that, how about we meet this chaplain or that ustad? Do you like this one? Let's try that. The baseline is we're going to do some kind of Islamic education as a family and you have input on how it's done, but you cannot say, no, we're not going to do something. So I'm trying to find ways that we can be balance. Yeah, I put the word balance here because that's like my whole thing. I feel like if people ask me what's Islam in one word, it's balance. So how do we kind of balance that approach of we want to guide them, we want to make certain decisions as the parents, as the teachers, but we also want to allow them to feel like they have a choice and they're heard. And so in Surah Al-Safat, and we know the story, we often talk about the story when Nabi Ibrahim, Nabi Ismail. So it really emphasizes how Nabi Ibrahim asked, alayhi salam, Fandur Mada Tara, like he really asked the opinion. Did he need to? He's a Nabi, alayhi salam. He received wahyu. Why does he have to ask his son for his opinion? And was he just asking to pretend to be engaging? Was he asking genuinely? What if Nabi Ismail alayhi salam had said, no, I don't agree, you can't do this. But the fact that it was asked, the fact that it's documented in the Quran, that he asked his child the opinion for such an important religious matter, which was revealed to him. To me, I often use this as an example of that inclusion, of that encouragement of asking and being genuinely curious, and accepting that the way they are processing something about the deen might be different than the way we are. Okay, let's take, is it time for break? Since we started, yeah. Hold on. Okay, before we go to the social media safety part, let's take a break and some conversation. As we move on, I don't know if we'll have time for the whole module, but that's okay. I think the conversation is important also. And I want to come back and end the session later with burnout and compassion fatigue. There's a lot of research coming out of after COVID of how teachers and educators are one of the most burnt out category of workers. It's not just the healthcare workers, but the teachers and the educators are really struggling with burnout and with compassion fatigue. And it's hard to be in that mode of spiritual resilience and emotional resilience when you're exhausted, when you're struggling with so much, when you're not getting alignment from the parents maybe. So let's end and have that conversation also. Yeah, I just wanted to share this little reminder about when we talked about being curious with our children, and how sometimes we just have to be honest about, okay, I don't agree with this opinion, or I don't agree that you want to do this, but I will talk with you about it. I will process with you why I may support or not support a certain decision. And that process that they feel heard is what builds that trust, and is what, inshallah, in the long term, they will come back to. Because as they grow up and they're still exploring their religious and spiritual identity, they know they can come back to you, this teacher, this ustad, ustada, or their parent, that they can get a real answer, that they can get a real conversation, that they feel you're listening to me and you're not just judging me that I'm not a good enough Muslim. And to me, that relationship is probably the most powerful part in supporting the spiritual resilience and growth in our next generation. Okay. As we take the break, what's maybe one reflection point or takeaway, or something that you recall coming from your students that you feel was relevant to the session this morning, when we talk about emotional connection with them, or when we talk about having real conversations about deen, or when we talk about the third one was you being a role model in your life as a parent or as a teacher. If we could go around just very briefly, because I know we got not 5 minutes each, just literally like a few seconds each, if anybody can just share your points as we go around. And the people online also, we'll start with the people in the room, but the people online also, yeah, we'll turn off the screen and you can share your input as well. Who'd like to start?
Yeah. Sometimes I know we don't like to share, but sometimes when you share, it really like connects with somebody else and it benefits somebody else, mashallah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Fauna. I'm the parent and the teacher also. So I feel that I'm very strict to my children. But you know, like I want to my children to not, you know, good Muslim. That's what I want. But I feel something that this is I'm right, you know. And then I have private class for some my friend. The children come to my house, and then when I teach her, my feeling is very slow, you know, like I'm really teaching the child. But when I teaching my own children, it's different. yeah, it's different. Like I'm very strict. Like there is no time to play. You know, like you already play. But when I teaching the other children, okay, taking a break. You know, like playing first, like coloring or reading some book that about prophet or something. You know, something fun for the other children. But I don't know, like with my children, okay, this is your time play, but when you time to ngaji, you have to ngaji. You know, is it what I'm doing is right?
Okay, let's park that
Yeah.
question. We're going to go around and listen to the other people's reflection also. Anyone else have a reflection or something based on those 3 points we discussed?
Ya, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yeah, my name is Nia. Alhamdulillah, I'm newcomer from Madrasah. I'm just teaching recently about almost 2 years. So our challenge in our class is, so I teach in a mixed ability class. So the class is like 11 and up, who is still in basic in Quran. So basically they are like a teenager already, right? But they're still in the basic of the Quran. So our challenge is how to like manage the time. Which one is the most priority? Because like this, in the other side, the parents wants the kids can read the Quran fast like that. Like why? Because yeah, because they already big, right? So they're like, why my kids is still in this level? But in the other side, we still need to give them more motivated about the Quran itself. How? Why? Like we said, because there's one student asked me, Sister Nia, can you speak Arabic? I said, no, I cannot speak Arabic. So when you reading the Quran, do you know the meaning? He said, well, some of them some of them I can, but mostly I cannot. I say like that. So what is the point that we have to learn the Quran? So I mean, why don't we just have to read the translation? Why we have to read the alif ba ta? I don't need this anymore. He said like that. It's just wasting my time. It's not going to work for me. So I don't need to read like learn how to read alif bata. So I just read the translation. What is the point? So in this point, I think, oh yeah, these kids. I mean, we need to give them also understanding why we need to read the Quran in Arabic, because they already in their mind, okay, Quran is a guidance, but that's the point why we should run the alif beta. Okay, so which one is the priority? At the same time, I want to like, okay, talk about why we have to read the Quran, why Allah promising many rewards in each word, in each letter of that. So reading Quran could be tools for us to erase our sins like that, not just our guidance. So that sometimes we confuse as a teacher in our class, like, okay, in other side, oh, is this, why my kids are still in this level? It's been like how many months is this? But in other side is also, we want to, put some point about why we have to read the Quran. So I want to see your point of view about this. Thank you.
Anyone else? We're collecting some of the questions, but we're also open for reflection atau sharing aja what you felt beneficial.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I think what I'd like to observe, okay, like my own personal experience with my children is that when the challenge is when I want to try to build connection with them and try to understand them, I can get lost. I mean, I could get to reach to a point that they actually are not listening to me. You see, I think maybe if you could give tips, what would be the good balance in a way when you want to try to be on their good side, but then they're going to be taking advantage of you, like they don't want to listen. But sometimes also, that's the first point. And second point is, sometimes, I feel like I try to be articulate, but I think that's the challenge. That's the challenge of some of us parents, and I think it's me too. So that's why I continue to try to learn, continue to read, continue to listen to YouTube. But how to convince? Maybe those are the 2 points. Thank you. How to convince them so they listen. We try to do it. I think what the point there is, I totally agree with you. You lead by example, but sometimes, even when you lead by example, it's hard to convince them if we cannot articulate what we want to say. Okay, thank you.
I'm still strict, but I was like extremely like strict, because it was just all about like like I wanted to get him to memorize like the 30 Jews, and like pray and all that, all jana jana jana. And so it becomes what do you call it, like I think I become like I think I was wrong that I forced him too much. So now he becomes like resist. You know what I mean? So more like now it's like what Sister Nia was saying, that he came to a point. He was saying that, so you read the Quran every day. Do you know what it means? So I was like, no, but I have to read the translation. So I memorized this Quran. He already memorized like to just mashallah. And then now I think like I was to pressure him too much, and I think that was my fault. I don't know, because it's like now I feel like it's my fault. He's 16 now, but he was already like by the age of maybe 12, like he was already memorized like like the 2 Jews, and then he came to that point, like, so what's the point? Yeah, I memorized all it's like I'm reading a book, but I don't understand one. He's like, I'm reading Japanese, so what's the point? And that's that. And but he follows like everything, like you understand, like you have to eat al halal and all that. And but just that part that now I have to get him to back to reading the Quran. And even until now he doesn't want me to get a Quran teacher. I feel bad, like I'm a Quran teacher, but he does. I teach him at home, but he doesn't want. I want him to get like he used to have like a private like one-on-one, like by Quran teacher. And when his father died, and so like a lot of things happening, so we have to stop it. But yeah, I could relate. So maybe now if I had to go back to time, maybe I shouldn't like push him too much, because he was literally like after school, like you have to memorize this and that. Like he like alhamdulillah, like he has the ability, like he can memorize like that, mashallah. But now, because I think it's because I forced him too much and strict him too much, like you have to pray, you wake up Fajr right at this time, like he was only like little, and at 4 o'clock at you have to wake up. And I think that was just like I think I somehow when you push too much, the reject. So but alhamdulillah, like now he's like like has he prays, even though at almost towards the ends, but at least he got up and pray on his own, and he knows it's it's pray time. And he understands like everything else, that even like now he's in a group with like in a mentorship, like even though the mentor is not Muslim. I wish that there's one program for that. And one of the kids is Muslim, and I thought I had to teach him everything, and he came back to me like, because I said, oh, what are you guys talking about? Oh, men can wear, I didn't know, men can wear gold. Why is that? Okay, I have to like, okay, what's and then another thing also is like, like, oh, I could not, like boys can have like, like girlfriend. Like, why is that? Like a lot of questions. I'm like, oh my God, I have to like retract, what did they start saying? A lot of question, like all these teenagers. But but yeah, but then, you know, like we never know that like from like this conversation will come like from, you know, like from the outside, from like his friends or like his peers, and even like from the books or videos that they're watching. Like I share that, you know, like it's intrigued me. Like I didn't even know that, you know, like how the Quran starts from the right, like from the back. I didn't know the Japanese do that. Did you know? Yeah, yeah, the writing and the book also. Like, and then he came up to me one time and he's like, "Oh, mommy, didn't wasn't there like something about that, you know, like we cannot show like the prophet or Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam or any other prophets of their face or their body. Yeah, it has to be like a light." And I said, yes. And he asked like, why? Explain. So I have to explain. And he said, oh, and I'm like, okay, why are you asking? Oh, because in this Japanese video or comic right, that he's reading, he said something about this, and he's told me like all the story. I'm like, oh, that's almost like the it's amazing. Like, you know, like we think that, you know, like all these comics are just because you don't read it doesn't mean that it's bad. Like when he's telling me all these stories, it's almost like the stories of like the, you know, the prophets and then the angels, and then like how it's amazing. I was like, oh my goodness. So I'm like, oh, you know what? I don't know. It just came out to me. Yeah, and I'm like, you know what? I'm like, you know, maybe is the writer, you know, I mean, who's the writer? What is Japanese? Oh, I was just wondering if the writer is Christian and reads the Bible, because it's almost I haven't read the Bible, so maybe, you know, it's something like that. But I think it's amazing. So don't limit. I think for my experience, it's like, you know, like it's okay for them to explore, not, you know, to unboard the boredness. You know, because you never know like what they're reading, you know. But yeah, that's just that. Thank you.
So I think we had a few different comments and questions and different perspectives. Again, you know better than me. There's no one single answer, easy answer for any of those questions. Sister was saying it's hard to parent. I think she left. Who is it? Was asking, it's hard to parent your own child. You were saying, yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I struggle with these conversations with my own children sometimes. And so this is where also that whole saying of it takes a village to raise a child is so important. And that is the sunnah also. Even in the time of Rasul Sallam, often it was the whole village that was raising the community. It wasn't just your responsibility as a parent. And on some topics, it is easier to get a friend to talk to them or somebody they trust to talk to them. Or if you have a mentoring relationship. In the community that I'm in now, is a Turkish community, they have a very strong mentoring system. So all the younger, like elementary kids, have a high school big brother or big sister. And the high school big brother or big sister is very involved. Like they have halakha every week, they play football or play a game, then they read Quran a little bit, then they pray Jama'at together. So it's fun, and it's also that relationship. And this is not the madrasah time. This is just that bonding time. So they really like design that program that the kids have different generations of mentors. So some of these other questions, like some of the tough questions that they ask may not be to the parent, it might be to that big brother or big sister figure. And then those the high school age big brothers and big sisters have a mentoring system with university age big brothers or big sisters. Like subhanAllah, the tarbiyah kind of generation. And then the university age big brothers and big sisters have a mentoring system with an older person or next generation or something like that. And they like, it's pretty consistent, almost weekly or monthly. There's stuff going on, there's updates. So in some communities, they have that kind of usrah system. And I really feel that's a beneficial approach, especially in this day and age of trying to find ways to have a village to raise our children, that it's not all on the parents and all on the teachers, but there's these levels of mentoring that's built in to how we are involved with each other. I had a funny experience recently about the question about parenting your own child. One of my best friends, her son, she's an ustada. The son memorizes like how many juz of Quran, and then there were a few of the boys started talking about that they have girlfriends. And so the mom was like, I can't have this conversation with my son. Like, I can't talk to him about this whole girlfriend thing. Can you talk to him? He won't listen to me. And so like the approach to, okay, what does having a quote unquote girlfriend mean if you're a practicing Muslim, and understanding of marriage and your responsibilities, and you're mixing boundaries, physical boundaries with other girls of that age, and emotional expectations, religious expectations. So all these certain topics that she as a parent, even though she herself was doing halaqah with other youth, other teenagers, but with her own son, the son's like, Mama, I don't want to talk to you about this. Like, I know what I'm doing. I'm not crossing any lines. Like, don't worry about it. But she wanted to have a bit more conversation beyond just trust me, I'm not crossing any lines. Like, okay, what lines are we, so then I was the one who sent him messages and was like having like, so, I heard so and so, and I'm not trying to get into your business or anything, but here's some useful videos about navigating romance in college and as a Muslim. Videos that I felt also the shuyukh who were approaching it from like a non-judgmental perspective and acknowledging how difficult it is with some of these topics. So as a parent, just normalizing that it's really hard to have some of these conversations with your own children. And there's just a lot of emotional. My mom was a teacher. She taught maths and English and geography, and other students said she was the best teacher ever. She taught them tuition. When she tried to teach me, I'm crying, she's crying, nobody's learning any math. We're all just upset. Like, why do my other people say you're the best teacher, but with me, like, it just gets a bit different. So I feel you. Balancing of the Quran reading. Yeah, I mean, even as an adult, right? I would ask, it's not just about the kids, even as an adult, why, if somebody's just, why do I need to learn the Arabic? I just read it in English. And then we're trying to convince people like, no, but there's benefit to reading it in Arabic. Some people, and we have to be aware, this part of the emotional intelligence is also being aware of different personality types, right? So some people are very cognitive, intellectual based, and they like anyway to find out different languages or learn different languages. So for them, a different kind of approach or argument or suggestion may work better. Like if they're interested in studying different languages anyway, then why not study Arabic, right? Since that is the language of the Quran. And some people are more sort of maybe emotional based, or they appreciate the sound of the Quran naturally. So they acknowledge and they appreciate, the Quran has its own, I don't want to say magic, but has its own like life, the hayat from the Arabic, and the recitation itself has barakah. So, and some people are connected with that. But I think the whole point of this conversation is that ongoing trust and that ongoing relationship, because they will change over the years. They will have different phases. So your son at a certain age was great, memorizing Quran, memorized 2 juz, and seemed to enjoy it and was doing it and whatever. And then at a certain age, it's like, why do I have to do this? Why? And then now he doesn't want to do it at all. He doesn't want to read Quran anymore. So, and then inshallah, it can be, but the fact that he's still talking to you and sharing with you other things about the deen or about questions about the trust that I mentioned, I wrote down, he was telling you all these stories. So there is, the communication is there, is open. And the foundation is there. We have planted the seeds, and inshallah, it comes back in different ways in their own time. Sometimes with the Quran question to me, again, like I ask the parents back, are you reading Quran at home? Because your kids, they're with me, 3 hours a week. At home, what's good? What is the Quran environment at home? when they come back from school? Is it the telenovela, drama, whatever that's on TV? Or do they hear mama is listening to Quran in the kitchen, that baba is listening to Quran in the car when they're driving? Or what? What are they seeing, what are hearing in the household? What about the parents reading? Are the parents enjoying the Quran? Do their children see the parents enjoying the Quran? Because they're going to come to you and say, why do I have to do this? This is not fun. This is boring. This is not fun. This is hard. Nobody else is doing it. My parents are not doing it. So I think it's really multi-level kind of approach and question also. And sometimes I am just very transparent with the children, with the parents. But my children, please ask my kids to pray. I'm like, are you praying in Jama'ah at home? You and your husband, are you praying in Jama'ah at home? Oh, actually, no, because my husband comes back from work at this time. So he prays at this time and then I pray at another time. Okay, so the kids, do they see you praying? Maybe, maybe not. Then they have their, you know, school and sports and stuff. Okay, then how? I don't know. You have certain tough decisions have to be made as a family of what and where we place our value. At least Maghrib and Isha, we're going to pray together as a family. Or at least if Baba's praying later because he comes home late, the door is open. The kids are seeing him pray. They are seeing the parents read half a page of Quran each day and enjoying it, or reading it together after Salah together. So it's not just like, oh, this is something we do. This is what our family does. We read Quran together. We learn something a little bit. You can't do it on your own. And there's no answer to this question. Why do I need to do this? Because they're not looking for an answer. When they ask that question, usually they're not looking for an answer. They already don't want to do it. Or they just want to test you and see what you have to say. They're not trying to actually get an answer, kan? And I like your approach of like kind of sharing some benefits of it, but also asking them like, but there will be times where they're just like, well, then I don't want to do it. Then, yeah, kita tak bisa paksa gitu kan. And we can paksa, and then sometimes it backfires later, like you're saying. Or sometimes they appreciate the paksa, the forcing down the line, where I feel like, yeah, my ustad in the masjid used to hit my hand kalau salah, right? Ngaji-ngaji and then hit your hand. But not my approach. But that's what happened to me. And there was other ustad who didn't do that. But I now as an adult, I'm grateful that my parents sent me to masjid when I was young, and I learned to recite Quran fluently as a young child. So I'm not struggling with it as a teenager and adult, and it was just already easy and smooth. But looking back, I wasn't really happy with some of the approaches either at that time. And I probably resisted it. But that later, alhamdulillah, that it's still beneficial to me and it comes back as something beneficial. And I think we have to put in a bit more effort in trying to make things a bit more creative and flexible. I feel sometimes, again, it's tiring. It's tiring to be creative. You know this, your teachers, how to make lessons fun and interesting, how to make the seerah exciting, how to make project, art, creative, poster color. I see paintings, beautiful drawings in the back. It's not easy, it's hard. And it's also, we're not used to it. Macam like, how am I supposed to make reading Quran like fun? Like how, at the end of the day, there's certain things that you just have to read and learn, right? This is how you spell the letters. You can't play like all the time, it doesn't work either. But again, that balance of kind of getting their help at a certain age that they see genuinely you're trying, and that they're also putting in some effort, and that overall, to me, at the end of the day, as IMAAM Madrasah teachers, at the end of the day, if all these kids get is that they feel like, oh, I had some really nice madrasah teachers who were kind, and they were representatives of Islam in my life as a child, and they were kind, and they made me feel like Islam is something beneficial or positive or kind or nice. To me, that's like the most important thing, especially in this community when they grow up. There's like, it's really up to them what they do with their deen after this. It's so hard. But if they have that relationship and they have those memories, inshallah, they will look back for what they need to come back to when the time comes that they feel oh yeah, I know there's ways to study Quran. Oh yeah, I know there's interesting ways to study sirah or fiqh or something, fiqh, and I know there's teachers maybe I can come back and connect to, but that relationship I feel is most important. Kids taking advantage of kind parents. Oh yes. So we'll take a break for Asar and makan. Come back in about half an hour. 5:15 ya. Bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة.
We'll do a quick group photo. We come back.
حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to our friends on Zoom. We have siapa ini? Husnul, mana tadi namanya hilang. Dewi, Emma Jaya, Fitri, Husnul, iPhone, Ismi, Nada Adiba, Novi, Nur Fajar, Soleha. We are coming back from our break, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to share some of your thoughts and reflections. I know you are not here in person physically, but you are still with us. And if any of you want to unmute or type in the chat any thoughts or comments or reflections that you had from the earlier session, please do so now, inshallah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sister Sakina, this is Ismi.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yes.
Can I speak in Bahasa? Ya, bisa. Bisa? Okay.
Let me just hold on. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. As we come back from break, okay, Ibu-ibu, bapak-bapak, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. As we come back from break, I'm going to start taking some of the comments from the friends on Zoom. We haven't heard from them yet. And if you could just please lower your voice, please continue eating, drinking tea, no problem. Just minta tolong inshallah lower your voices a little bit and we can hear from our friends on Zoom as well.
Yes, go ahead. Tadi siapa yang wanted to talk?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ibu, tadi siapa di Zoom who wanted to say something?
It's me. ISMI, that's my name, not it's me.
Okay.
Can I speak in Bahasa?
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you. Saya cuma mau apakah yang saya lakukan sudah benar atau tidak gitu di kelas, karena selama saya bergabung di madrasah, saya selalu jadi assistant teacher. Nah, setiap bulan itu sometimes gitu ya, nggak selalu, kadang 2 bulan sekali, kadang setiap bulan. Saya itu mungkin ini buruk ya untuk sebagian orang, tapi buat saya ini untuk menyemangati anak-anak gitu. Jadi saya selalu memberikan nggak banyak uang gitu kepada mereka gitu ya, setiap awal bulan itu kepada mereka, kadang lewat kuis atau cuma gift aja gitu tiap bulannya ke anak-anak itu gitu. Nah, terus kalau misalkan dia bisa menjawab kuis, uangnya itu lebih besar daripada yang rutin cuma $1 gitu. Itu bagaimana, Sister Sakinah? Yang saya lakukan itu buruk atau apakah perlu dilanjutkan atau diberhentikan? Tapi saya sudah melakukan ini lama sekali gitu, bukan baru sekarang aja. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Hello. Okay. Yang Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bu Ismi, you can hear me, those who are in Zoom, just to confirm the audio is clear. Can somebody?
Yes, saya bisa dengar.
Can you hear me?
Yes, clear.
Cannot hear. So I need to unmute. Hello, now can you hear me?
Now I can
Yes,
hear.
I think.
Crystal clear.
No voice.
Bisa ya?
Now we can
But
hear
Ismi
you.
or anyone, can you type in the chat or just unmute to tell us, can you hear me?
Yes.
Tidak kali, kalau diam aja.
We can hear. Yeah.
What changed? I didn't.
Can I try this one and mute yourself over there? Try this one.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullah. Our friends on Zoom, can you hear me?
Yes, sister, I
Sekarang
can
bisa.
hear you.
Tadi nggak bisa ya?
Tadi
Yes,
bisa
sister,
juga.
tadi tidak bisa 10 menit tidak ada suara.
Yeah, no, okay. We'll just try with this laptop. I don't know.
Now it's good.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay. The question that we had on Zoom was, I mean, in a way, not quite directly related to our conversation today, but it's okay. I think one of the teachers asked about giving money in class, like as a gifts, having competition or quizzes in class, and using like money instead of like a sweet or chocolate or something like that as gifts. I think that honestly is probably more of a question that the school and the teachers maybe have some kind of guidelines. I'm not sure with what those guidelines are. I know like some places they don't allow that. You can have games and competition, you can collect points, or you can have some beneficial gifts or stationery or chocolate. They don't really use money. Some places they do. I don't know. So in the context of your question, I think if it's specific to that, I would say discuss it with the other teachers or the school and what is the philosophy of the school around games and prizes and monetary gifts, whether it's small or big, or it's like an end of the year gift, or it's like a daily quiz thing. So different places will have different guidelines. If you're asking more from like philosophically as a parent or as a teacher, or you know, the kind of balance we want to strike with encouraging and motivating with an external compensation gitu kan, kita kasih gift atau prize atau we just say no, you're doing something, the reward comes from Allah inside you and we don't need to give you any benefit or something like that. I know that's a whole different conversation, and I think it's a bit of a balance, you know, like we always have in Ramadan especially, right, when the kids are fasting, they fast half a day, you know, at the end of the month maybe Baba buys them a gift. So there's different families handle that differently. And I think that's sort of case by case basis also. My general approach or advice would be, again, case by case, what's the family expectations, and also not to be too reliant on one approach only. We might get into that actually, because one of the parts of the presentation, I don't think we have time because we ended up starting late today because of another event here, but there is a conversation about love languages and appreciation languages, and we try to understand each other, whether our husband or wife or our children or our friends. Some are motivated more by words of encouragement and words of affirmation, like I really appreciate you, your recitation is very nice, mashallah, thank you for cleaning your room, that was very helpful. So some people are motivated by words like that as appreciation, as a sign of love. Some are more motivated by different languages, for example, touch or being physically close. So maybe, I don't know, we need to finish at 6 or 6:30, can I confirm? 6, okay. Yeah. So let me do the screen sharing. How do I give myself the powers, participants? Tadi disconnected kan, so I couldn't make co-host. So we're just navigating the two laptops to figure this something out. Okay, we'll touch a bit about the love languages, and then which addresses maybe a bit of that question. Is there any other questions or comments from Zoom before we proceed? Somebody put something in the chat. Okay. Okay, no more questions, comment. Anytime, please just put in the chat so I see the chat and then I will call on you, okay? Your participation on Zoom is very important, and you are a part of this meeting as well, inshallah. I wanted to comment, we had some conversations during the break and some funny stories and exchanges about our children and students and practices of Salah and the different struggles we have as parents. And I just want to affirm that this is something that we all share and experience in different ways. And we want to encourage that ability to feel safe sharing the struggle, because sometimes I think as Muslim parents and Muslim teachers, we are also judging each other. We may not intend to do it on purpose, but sometimes we do it. And I feel that that mindset isn't helpful, because a lot of parents are struggling, a lot of teachers are struggling. And if we are coming from a place that we are judging how you raise your child and you're teaching Quran, but your child is having this problem and you're doing this, but your child's not praying, I feel that's an approach that is not helpful to our community. And sometimes it causes, we're talking about cancer with Brother Ali, like his research, but sometimes those things surface as a tumor later, like they just stay in your system. You're not addressing the pain or the struggle because we're afraid to share it. We're ashamed. We feel that other people are going to judge our children or our students. And at the end of the day, that becomes a disease later on, which is a lot more difficult to handle. I want to share this discussion because again, I talked about bringing things to the reality of the situation now, and how we have to have more conversations that are difficult early. And when it comes to, I think there were some conversations going around during the break about social media, you know, like at what age the kids have access to phone, the kids have access to TikTok, how much do we control, how do we try to maintain our connection with them while like human real life connection, while also acknowledging that a lot of this generation, they are finding that connection and relationship online. They are finding community online, and we don't know often who they are connected to. So one parent in the break was sharing that she feels, is she being too strict if she doesn't allow the child to have a phone, but everybody else has, allows their children to have phones. And I was listening to this researcher, I forgot his name. I think his name is in my resource list. And he was sharing about, American researcher, and sharing about the dangers and the safety issues of cyber security, social media from a mental health perspective, emotional health perspective. And he says his approach is like not letting them have a phone that has smart tools, or a phone for emergency purposes that can make calls and texts, but to limit access to internet at least until age of 13. And he said if they go to school and say my parents don't allow me, then that's it. Sometimes some decision making has to be made that is not cool, quote unquote, not cool with the friends of the students, but they know their parents have a reason for doing it anyway. So he has a video on YouTube where he talks a lot about how to support parents and community and education and teachers with handling social media and children and access to technology. I'm sorry if I'm sounding a little bit all over the place, because I'm just really realizing we only have 15 minutes. There's a whole section we're supposed to cover. So in my brain, I'm trying to prioritize what feels important. So I want to share this video of something that is currently happening and on social media, and I think is affecting, our students are exposed to this anyway. And I know when we had the parent sessions, a lot of the questions I received from parents was how to have conversations around LGBT awareness and what approach to have as a parent or as a school in in being more aware about what is out there. And this video sort of shares a recent clash in a way between this Muslim, she's a comedian actually, she's a comedian who kind of does educational videos using comedy. And she was exposing this person who on TikTok was inviting children to watch some of their videos. And to me, again, this, we don't have time to have this bigger LGBTQ discussion. I feel like sometimes our community is a bit sheltered with what is out there. And if you don't know about it, your kids know about it. Your kids are watching these things probably. And the need for us to just be aware of what's safe and not safe. Not saying this is wrong, I'm not saying that the children shouldn't have any exposure to what is going on. They need to be aware, they need to know and understand what is our view, what is their view as a person, what's our view as the dean, and their parents, and then also at the same time, kind of related to the earlier conversation, how to have these real conversations with them, because at schools, the schools are talking about it already. So I don't know what's going on in like our Muslim communities in different masajids on providing parents and teachers with better understanding, better tools, better approach, beyond just telling the kids, no, we don't do this, or no, Islam says this is wrong, and don't get involved. But they have friends, they have questions, they're reading things, they're seeing things, they're being educated a certain way. And it doesn't work to just pretend that this isn't happening. And there's also, I feel like in our deen, how we believe a certain matter to be true, to be haqq, and also how we treat others. Because those are different. We may have a certain belief that something is haqq, something is the truth, but that doesn't mean we treat people badly if they are doing that, or they're practicing that, or they're thinking that, or they have questions. So it's also that combination of talking with our children around different matters when it comes to social justice, and especially in the context of the US, and where and how they want to navigate that. Yeah. If it is on your agenda, I mean, I'm not the best person for this, but I really feel that each masajid, each madrasa needs to invite speakers specifically who are trained and have experience in kind of talking about specifically social media and the youth and what is out there and how to navigate it. I put the link in the Zoom so that the people on Zoom can listen to it directly, because I don't think you can see it from here. Let me try to turn it on the side. Bismillah. Okay. Zoom folks, I'm speaking again. Can you hear me? Can somebody respond just to confirm before I proceed, please, that you can hear me on Zoom? Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so thoughts? Have you seen that? Have you seen what's been going on this last week on like the Muslim versus everybody else social media? Anyone seen that video? No, okay. Yeah, I think because I'm on like different groups with educators and chaplains and pastors, and they were like, oh, okay, how do we address this? Yeah, this is last week, yeah. This is last week. I don't have TikTok either, but the what was attractive to me and what I felt connects to our session really is that that person was putting it in a way that they are the safe space for children who feel unloved by their families or children who feel they're lacking emotional connection with their families. That I will be here to provide you that love and that connection and care. And I think that really connects to our topic in the sense of like the importance of that sense of belonging and relationship and love and connection that our children have with us at home, with their school, with their madrasah, in their identity, in their friends. Not just to say, not just to in a superficial way, but in a way that is a foundation of what helps protect our children and for them to be able to not be seeking that love and attention somewhere else. So, and I'm not talking about even this from necessarily from a perspective of somebody trying to advise children on their sexual identity, but any adult, like what her point was on the video was that any adult should not be inviting young girls and boys to have private conversations on social media. This is not a trans issue. They've made it now to look into like, oh, Muslims are against transgender and transphobic and things like that. Her point was that this is not even about that issue. This is about social media safety. This is about cybersecurity safety and protection of that adults having private conversations with young children that are strangers to you, that are strangers to them. And so connecting back to our topic on if we are not being that space where they feel love and connection and trust, we might not know that they're exposed to some of these other things and they might not have that conversation with you. Like you were saying your son was sharing some of these things with you from the Japanese cartoons and things like that. At least he's telling you. And I had our son also ask us things like, oh, we saw this. My friend was sharing this video. Like, what does this mean? Like, does this make sense? To me, I always check in and I always encourage teachers and parents to check in with like, have you watched or heard anything that you're confused about, you can come and check with me and have a genuine conversation when they do. Because sometimes they bring weird things and then we're like, oh no, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, why are you watching this? No phone. That's it. They're not going to come back. They're not going to come back and ask. And when like really more difficult matters surface, they're probably going to go and talk about it to somebody else and not with us. I will always rather they feel comfortable enough to come back to us with these difficult or confusing or things they just want clarity about. And as adults in the community, as educators in the community, we have to educate ourselves. We have to know what's out there. We have to know what are safe approaches. There's so many ways to keep the internet safe within our own homes. But it takes effort. We have to learn. We have to figure out what are all these apps that are parent safety apps. How do I work the parent safety app into my laptop, my child's iPad, the phone? Like it's a whole thing I have to learn, right? Like it's not just easy, just download the app and magically it'll do all that. Like I have to do the settings. I have to do like when they open certain things that I get notified. I have to like, it's something we have to learn. And if we don't, then it's like just sending the internet is probably the more dangerous than a battlefield. So just being caution around that, and then getting the right people and professionals maybe involved who can guide and advise and do proper training and education for parents from an emotional perspective, but also from a practical technology perspective. Just the technology of it, like I don't even like, it's not easy for parents and teachers to learn how do you want to navigate the technological part of it. Okay, so we're about to end and I will just we'll skip some of these exercises, inshallah. Who knows, we can do it some other time. But I wanted to touch briefly the love languages, because when we talk about emotional connection and emotional intelligence, has anybody read the love languages books? Nope. Okay, one person. So initially this started, astaghfirullah, why did it go back? Initially this started as a research for marriage counseling and how different couples, husbands and wives communicate each other. Where did it go? There you go. Okay. But over the years, it has also expanded to love and appreciation languages from the perspective of teacher and student, parent and child, colleagues at work, fellow friends and students. And I was reflecting on it from the lessons from the life of our Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how those different languages of love surfaced in the way that he communicated with some of the companions of the Sahabi. So in this kind of personality series, or you can read the book, you can watch the training, you can even do the test online as a parent or as a wife, husband, as a teacher. What are some of your preferences? The original research was interesting in the sense that when he counseled husbands and wives, a lot of the marriage problems kind of surfaced because people just didn't understand the other person's love language. They didn't realize their own love language. So for just simple example, maybe husband comes back from work, wife comes back from work, and then she's also cooked dinner and cleaned the house or whatever, and she's put the energy into that which she feels is providing a service to the home or to him. And at the same time, maybe his love language is words of affirmation or touch, and he prefers to, like, let's just sit closely together and have tea together, like don't run around and try and do this right now, we just both got home from work, I would like to spend some physical time close with you. Whereas the other person is like, I'm trying to show my love by making sure that the food's ready and that we can have dinner together. And so both are trying to show love and receive love, but it was just because they didn't quite understand the other person's love language or their own desire for a certain love language well, that sometimes there was conflict. And one person may say, but I always give you gifts, I always do this for you, and I always buy this and buy that. But the other person's love language may not be gifts. And the other person may say, but I just want you to spend time with me. Like, don't waste money buying this and that. I don't really care. I want the time. Or I want you to help me with something, the act of service versus buying gifts. So the book, the research, the counseling, and all that is really, I feel, helpful also when it comes to with our students and with our children. So from the briefly, when we are able to connect with a certain sense of love and appreciation and empathy and connection, we feel full, right? We feel like our tank is being filled, when that trust is being built, and that we feel comfortable and assured and close. And when too many negative things happen in the chain of communication, usually we can start feeling like in our head, maybe there's like minus points, and at a certain point you lose the negative experiences kind of eat away at the trust that is there. So just very briefly, we can do like a whole workshop on this and do exercises and discuss, but since one of the questions also talked about different ways of understanding each other, I wanted to say, like in the case of physical touch, Rasulullah SAW responded to when like a Bedouin was asking him and observing that Rasulullah SAW kissed child, and he said like, well, we never kiss children, said the Badui. And Rasulullah SAW said, what can I do if Allah has taken away rahmah from you, right? So that's one of the forms of the love and appreciation, being physical closeness with a child. And when we're teaching them at school, we may notice this with some children. Maybe they like being pat on the back and like, or like, you know, you touch their hand or something. And some children don't like that. They don't want you, like, okay, I don't like that. Or you may notice that difference. And it could be that for one person, their love language is that assurance. Whereas for another person, they like hearing the Ustad I was saying like, MashaAllah, your recitation was so good today. For me, I'm not words of affirmation type of person. If my husband praises me verbally, I'm like, yeah, okay, like doesn't mean like that's not my love language. I mean, that's not high on my priorities, because I'm more aware of myself now. For me, I have the other love languages that are more important to me. But for him and for my second son, he really responds when you verbally appreciate the person, but he doesn't really like the touchy kind of affirmation or love. And Rasul Sallam, many times we have narrations of him lying down either on the lap of his wife or with his daughters, or even sitting closely with Sahaba. So it's not just like physical touch. Sometimes people think, oh, this means like sexual intimacy. No, we're talking about physical closeness in language, and that's very relevant to communicating with our children. And some of them need that sort of physical closeness as a sign of appreciation and love. In my another session, I talk about how this is a spiritual love language, but we'll just do the communication part for today. When it comes to quality time, I like this example when Rasulullah SAW was riding, and this is narrated by Ibn Abbas. And the hadith itself is a very powerful hadith, and we often focus on the matan, the content of this hadith, and that is important. But for the purposes of this example, I wanted to share how this is like a deep example of spending quality time with a young person. Ibn Abbas at that time was young. In some narrations, I think he was 10 or he was 13, like he was at a young age. And he was riding with Rasulullah beside him. And so even though they were riding with other people, right, they were riding together with other people, but this was a personal, quality, private conversation that was just between the two of them. And that was one of the forms of tarbiyah, one of the forms of appreciation, is that we are able to have the quality time and relationship with somebody. And if we have multiple children, I often encourage parents, or in a class, even as a teacher, some sessions you may have as a group, and then some sessions you may have one-to-one, and have a bit of a private, intimate moment with just one child, whether your children at home or your students in the school. So there is that sense of like special bond that's just me and my mama, or me and my baba, or me and my teacher. And then there is that bond with the group as well. So the quality time approach to appreciation and love. The third is the words, using verbal words, and we talked a little bit about that. Things like praising, you're great, this is good job. And from our hadith, we learn, of course, that man la yashkurun nas la yashkurullah, those who are not showing appreciation and not thanking people, and not thankful to Allah. So again, that invitation to express verbally kind words, express verbally gentle words, express verbally appreciation, as a form of connection and emotional bond with each other. The fifth, I think this might be the last one, gifts. And if you wanna, I talk to the kids sometimes, I tell them, you wanna say you memorize a hadith, like the shortest hadith you can memorize is this, tahadu tahabu. And sometimes they get excited. They're like, oh, I've memorized the hadith, the shortest hadith. So give the hadiyah. In our language, we use hadiyah in Indonesian and Malay, right? Give gifts, and then you and that increases the love in each other as a language of love, as a language of affirmation, and appreciating gifts from each other, even if it's something small. But again, sorry, I'll do the last one and then summarize. The other approach to love language or appreciation language is through acts of service. So in this example, we hear from our mother, Umm al-Mu'minin, Aisha radiallahu anha, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to serve his loved ones, serve his family at home, and then when the time of salah comes, he would leave and pray. But that the baseline was that he was a man of service to the ummah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, service to his family, service to his loved ones, and that is another approach that we learn not just from this research, but from our sunnah directly, and the different ways that we are able to express our love and receive love, express appreciation and receive appreciation in our family, in our schools, through as an act of service. So the deeper lesson again is part of the muraqabah, part of the emotional intelligence is to be able to know yourself better, to be able to know each other better, the children better, our spouse better, and that helps increase overall our emotional intelligence and emotional awareness. And when we are more in tune with ourselves, and when things are a little bit more peaceful and quiet inside us, that feeds our relationship with Allah. That feeds our ability, and that sharpens our ability to be really in tune with, like, hold on, like, what does Allah want me to do in this situation? Like, can I quickly listen to myself, my heart, my emotions, my mind? Like, what's my mind telling me? What's my heart telling me? What's my body telling me? What is the best thing for me in this situation? What pleases Allah in this situation? And to be in tune with that ability of communication with their children, with our students, with our family members, with our loved ones. And that at the end of the day, is not always easy, but it's very rewarding, and it is, to me, a continuous process. It is a muscle that we keep practicing. So when we talk about muraqabah, sometimes people say, like, it's, you just make dhikr, tazkiyatun nafs. Okay, you can say that, but that is a whole process. It's a lifelong process, that awareness of what you want to improve yourself, how we want to improve ourselves, and then how we want to be able to support our children and family members to improve themselves. The tazkiyah cannot happen unless there is that level of inner awareness and your self-awareness, and knowing where your weaknesses are and what we need to improve on. We can look at the list of things, like, okay, when we want to do tazkiyah to nafs, here's the checklist of the qualities of our heart that we want to remove and the qualities of our heart that we want to improve. That's on paper, okay. But the practice of being aware of that inside us is half of the struggle. Because we can see, okay, how do we remove ego? How do we remove hasad? How do we remove greed and these negative qualities on paper for tazkiyah? But knowing how to notice in ourselves greedy? When am I feeling ungrateful? Why am I responding to this child in this way, or this parent in that way? Why am I getting upset when what am I judging or thinking about this parent when they come to the school because they're dressed a certain way, or they say certain things, or their attitude is a certain way? That is that muscle, working that muscle. And that is what then is able to support us in our process of tazkiyatun nafs. Without that self-awareness, it's just a theoretical exercise. You can have a list. These are all the things that Allah calls, or that in our Islamic teaching, as the diseases of our hearts. And this is what we want to purify. Okay, on paper. But the work needs to be really integrated in our mind, and the learning of it, and having a guide and a teacher, and then also with the muscle of noticing in ourselves and encouraging that in our children. With the kids tomorrow, inshallah, when I meet them, I'll wrap up now. Inshallah, tomorrow morning, morning, I'll get to meet your 120 children all in one house, subhanallah. That'll be fun. And one of the things I'll be kind of working with them is how they notice different emotions inside them. So one of the teenagers that I do private counseling with, she's working on her anger, because when her mother introduced her to me, she's like, my daughter gets angry all the time at home, and then she yells at me, she yells at her father, she yells at her brother. Please help work with her anger or whatever. But like, I'm not a therapist, I'm a chaplain. I work on emotional and spiritual development and growth. My concern is more like your child's iman. What does she feel as her identity? How is she struggling what does she feel is a purpose in life? And then working also on emotional resilience. And for her to be able to notice when she's getting angry. So she's 13, 14, that very interesting age for a young girl. A 13, 14-year-old. And so we talked about, I was like, okay, when do you notice you get angry more? She's like, well, when my brother says this and this, I feel like he doesn't respect me. I feel like he thinks I'm stupid. Like, okay, so then we dig deeper. Is the anger coming from what he says about this thing that happened in your room, or the way that he says it? Okay, notice that. And then when my mom does this or says this. So I'm not doing family counseling, right? I'm just seeing her. So my point with her, my relationship with her is like, I can't change your family. Maybe your parents also need to see a counselor, separate issue. They're fighting all the time. That's stressing you out as a 13-year-old. She says her parents are fighting all the time and it's very stressful in the house. I can't do anything about that. What I'm working with her is like, how do you feel when you work yourself up to that anger and then you yell at your parents? What happens after that? She said, well, I feel good for a little while. Like, it's like I yell at my parents, I yell at my brother, and then I feel good for a little while. So, okay, what happens after? I usually go to my room and cry. So, okay, what's going on there? If it feels bad. What feels bad? And then she's thinking about it. She's like, I don't know, yelling at them feels good just for a little while, and then it just feels bad. I just feel like I'm lonely. Nobody understands me. So I'm just trying to connect, because it's not going to work for me to tell her, you cannot yell at your mother. Is that going to work? No, you know that. You cannot yell at your teacher. You cannot yell at your brother. Good luck. But I want her to understand herself and her emotions and how that connects also to her relationship with Allah. So we had this is not one session. Like, I've had like 7 sessions with her, right? So we're working on identifying how she feels when she gets angry, and then what happens after that. And then the next week is like, okay, if you know what happens when you notice you're starting to get angry. Oh, my face tightens, or my chest tightens, or I can just feel like I'm like starting to shake or something. Like, okay, do you want to try something? Like, maybe take like 5 deep breaths and say Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. Just take 5 breaths and then see how you feel after that. And then after you do that, if you still feel like you need to yell, then you yell. So my negotiation is like step by step by step, right? Like, so she comes back the next week, and there was an incident, and she started getting angry, and then she said, okay, I took the breaths. So how did you feel after that? I still felt angry. So it's a process, right? And then the following week, she said like, oh, I took the breaths and then I didn't yell at my brother. I was like, okay, we're all right. And then the next week, so it's an ongoing process, but that awareness for her to be able to connect at the end of the day, to be able to manage her own emotions is the only really the way that she's able to progress in life. Because same with us also, we can't really control the environment. We can't control necessarily the behavior of our husband or wife or the child. It's really about us managing our own emotions inside, and that inshallah will have an impact on those around us also. Okay, it's 6:15. I'm sorry. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilaik. I will stay here for a bit. I'll stay here till Maghrib. So we didn't have much time for interaction. I know we started an hour late and we ended 15 minutes late. So I'm sorry about that also. But inshallah, if there's other opportunities and I'm still available as well, I'll be here till Maghrib if anybody wants to talk. And inshallah, there'll be other opportunities to stay in touch. Yes, I do private sessions. I know some people were asking about that. You can reach out to me. Yeah, you can reach out to me directly. I don't have that many availability slots because now I've started the chaplaincy work at the graduate school, but I do some personal sessions if anybody's interested. And if anyone's interested in finding out about the Respect Graduate School, it's an Islamic graduate school. We have a program, a master's in Islamic studies. So some of your teachers, educators, if you're interested in doing a master's in Islamic studies in our graduate school, it's in Pennsylvania. We have programs online and hybrid. So you could do it online and then come to Pennsylvania sometime for hybrid. And we are in the process of getting accreditation. So we're not accredited yet, but I think inshallah, by the time the first cohort finishes, inshallah, it will be accredited.
So question, for those who might want to need some counseling, so how can we contact you?
You can maybe get my email. I don't have my website set up yet, but Ina has my email.
Okay, maybe we can share. Okay, and then they can just directly contact you,
I
inshallah.
also have a website to make it easier, but I haven't done that yet.
So probably for those in Maryland or outside of Pennsylvania would be like through virtual, right? Online. Okay, inshallah. Okay. So there are some options. Also, this session is recorded for those who missed the earlier session. There are a lot of knowledge and I took a lot of notes. And if you missed some of the notes, it's all recorded. And also I wanted to mention from the last session, there was the YouTube that you shared with Sheikh Yasser Kadri, right? MashaAllah. You should watch that. Please. It's 2 hours and a half long. I didn't do it in one shot, but I was in awe, like right away. Like 7 states, or 6 or 7 states that mandate the curriculum of LGBTQ. I think, I'm not sure if in Maryland, but in Maryland itself, they did a research, and I Googled it, and there have some successful, but in rate for those. Right after that, I asked my son, what did they teach you at school? No, because they have the health, and then now they have required a new one, right? And then the new one is probably going to be teaching about that. It wasn't mandated before. So now the last time, because they asked the parents first, right, for the consent. So out of all the health curriculum, 7 out of it, like I opt him out, and the teacher contacted me. I mean, when you opt out of most of the health education that in my class, so I suggest that you should just because, and he felt that he wasn't included, because if you option out, which you could, and they would put your son in in a library to do other things, and he felt like excluded and all that. So I'm like, okay, but I tell him first, all right, before you go to this class, I make him understand, look, this. It's like, okay. So but so for those parents who probably don't know about that option, you could like option out, but it is but you still can get grade for optional other curriculum. But yeah, and then can you imagine curriculum for pre-K kindergarten will be have this type of curriculum in the books? Well, they have just watch the YouTube. I was like,
Yeah, for those of you who were not aware, in the last session with the parents, I shared, since there were a lot of questions about sort of LGBT awareness, there was a video that Sheikh Yasir Qadi interviewed, I think a counselor, a Muslim counselor who's involved in this topic and in education. So it's very practical. It's not a video about like the fiqh rulings on gender. No, it is a very practical understanding of navigating it based on our fiqh and our understanding. So it's very current, and it talks about what is going on in the schools, and it's not what is it, like propaganda, or it's not, I know some people are kind of a bit too extreme on the other side or whatever, like they're very factual about what is being exposed and how and what the syllabus are, what are our rights as a parent or as an educator if we want to opt out of certain things, as you're saying, and to be aware of that. And some of those things, your voices in the school may be important in the local public schools, because if parents or teachers are not involved in the decision-making process and are involved, it's hard for us to come in the end and say, well, we don't like that you are forcing our children at kindergarten age to learn that there's no boy and there's no girl, and there's just, we're born this, like, we need, the voices need to come in like from now along the process, and not just like after things have changed and where our voices are not heard. Yeah. So I'll share the link. You can share the link. Yeah, I can share the link to the group.
but also maybe if you can share the link for the movie. I mean, is that open to the public? The what's it called? The Malaysian one. Like, I would like to watch that.
Yeah, I think you have to purchase it online.
Oh, really? Okay. What's it called again? Atengah?
That's my project for the coming month. Mentega
Mentega terbang. Okay. Mentega
is
terbang.
butter.
Butter. Flying butter. Like butterfly. Okay. Yeah, I think I would like to watch that. Yeah. But yeah, I suggest, because we don't have enough time to cover about the LGBTQ, so please, I would encourage for you guys to watch that. It's very intriguing for me. And all right, so with that, I think if you can have like a couple words for like a closing statement for us before Ustad Fawaz is gonna do closing dua.
I'm gonna make a dua also, actually. Okay, I just want to say thank you, each of you. I know you have a lot of things today. There was some overlapping programming, and you still showed up. And some of you this is your first day at work, is it? Ustad Ali, your first day, and hitting the ground running. So I just want to appreciate the team and the work and the effort. I've been hearing about IMAAM Center for many years, and it's an honor to be able to be here in person. What you all are doing to me is really important. One of my advisors was telling me that the main concern that he has is the iman of the next generation. The iman of the next generation. And I know we talked about, we were talking with somebody just now. At the end of the day, we are just holding the amanah that Allah has given us. The children are in our hands, but Allah knows their path more than we do. And we are only accountable to a certain degree, right? I'm not saying let go of them. I'm just saying sometimes it's so hard as a parent, as a teacher, that we feel we need to protect them, but at the same time remind ourselves to trust Allah. This is the biggest trust of Allah. And sometimes it's very confusing. Sometimes we may be raising the same children in one household and they can come out very different. And we were discussing during the break, we have all these examples in the stories of our Anbiya. We have all these examples in stories of our Anbiya who had trouble with their own children, with their own families, with their own spouses, with their own parents. And those stories comfort me. And I always, just at the end of the day, I know people say, oh, make dua, make dua. Yes, like really that dua is most of our effort. And to believe and trust at some point, sometimes we just do have to let go and surrender our children to Allah. And at the end of the day, we are accountable for our effort and accountable for our intention. And may Allah grant us acceptance and barakah and ikhlas. And may our children feel safe in our community. May our children feel emotionally and physically safe in our masajid, in our school, in our madaris, in our hands, in our homes, in our hearts. May they always come back to us, no matter what temptation is out there, no matter how boring Islam feels to them. May they always find the joy in our deen. May we always find the joy in our deen. May we always see the purpose that Allah has brought us here for. Even though on some days it feels completely useless and difficult and impossible. And at the end of the day, may we all be reunited with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the gardens of Jannah, with our children. And may Allah help us to, I think sometimes as immigrants to this country, I feel very honored, because sometimes people say like, well, it's easier to just go back to maybe your home country or something. Like, no, I don't think so. I don't necessarily think it's easier back home, to be honest, to raise Muslims. Sometimes it's easier here in some ways. But I truly believe Allah put us here for a reason, and in this community for a reason. And some places that I go, I tell my children like, hey, maybe in this place we are praying in this park, like we're driving somewhere and we stop in this random park in the middle of Pennsylvania or something, like maybe nobody has recited Al-Fatiha here. Let's pray Salah. Let's do our Salah in the park. And, you know, we're in the middle of white American country, whatever. I'm like, maybe nobody has recited Al-Fatiha in this park. And we will be the first to recite Al-Fatiha in this park. And let's do that. Like we're here, we're in this non-Muslim majority country, and let's spread our Al-Fatiha and our Salah in every corner of this space.
MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Thank you so much, Chaplainess Sakina Al-Habsi, for coming to Imam. And before we close, we have Ustad Fawaz. We can lead a dua for us, inshallah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمد الشاكرين حمد الناعمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيده يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك الكريم وعظيم سلطانك اللهم إنا نسألك من الخير كله عاجله وآجله ما علمنا منه وما لم نعلم ونعوذ بك من الشر كله عاجله وآجله ما علمنا منه وما لم نعلم اللهم إنا نسألك من الجنة وما قرب إليها من قول أو عمل ونعوذ بك من النار وما قرب إليها من قول أو عمل اللهم آت أنفسنا تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها ومولاها ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما ربنا اغفر لنا ولوالدينا وارحمهم كما ربونا صغارا اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من علم لا ينفع ومن قلب لا يخشع ومن نفس لا تشبع ومن دعوة لا يستجاب لها اللهم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك اللهم يا مصرف القلوب صرف قلوبنا على طاعتك. اللهم إنا نسألك الجنة يا الله، أدخلنا الجنة الفردوس يا الله، يا الله يا ربي. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا متقبلا. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. ربنا اغفر لنا ولوالدينا ولمشايخنا ولمن له حق علينا ولجميع المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار، والحمد لله رب العالمين، آمين.
Gonna close with the dua of kafaratul majlis. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.